BBR Scramble is back with another battle. We just lost a pretty tough match against OG Albina, but we are back against Treyant, hopefully looking to right the wrongs of the last battle. If you have not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. I'm on my way to 400 subscribers and would really appreciate it if you help me get there. So let's take a look at the team. A little bit of an interesting one this week. We have Spidef Garchomp, same SD scale shot set as last battle, but this time a little bit of Spidef to manage stuff like the Gold Dango on my opponent's team. Okidogi is a 4-attack set this time around. No setup, just going to be looking to deal some massive damage, and then Terra Steel to hopefully make it a little bit easier after the knockoff against the Meowscarada. Tornadus-t is a very, very good anti-lead this time out. I'm expecting a Fortress lead here, so Taunt Protect is going to basically make that useless in this game. Fast Scream Tail, good check against my opponent's Garchomp. Rotom Wash and Scizor, just standard Pokemon in this team. Going to do what they usually do, throw some Will-O-Wisps, throw some Bullet Punches, and hopefully pick up some big kills. Really relying on Okidogi to do a lot of damage this game to allow something like the Garchomp and the Tornadus to clean up in the end game. And let's see how this team will do. Alright, our opponent has been found. We have found Treyant here. He is running Terra Ice Munkidori. We are running Terra Steel Okidogi. And let's see, we got the exact that I was predicting here. Definitely, expected that Fortress lead. I didn't think Talonflame was very, very likely. So a little bit of a top 6 versus top 6 matchup as expected. So I'm just going to lead with the build that I came out to lead with. There's not much else, complicated to really do about this matchup. Let's just lead the Torn, get that taunt off turn 1, protect against the boom, and that should open up the rest of the game for us here. Really, really offensive matchup if you look at both of these teams. He's got like an Alamomolas as well. He's switching on this team. And I've got, Scream Tail and Rotom Wash as my only switch-in, so I'm not doing much better on that side either. What's going to be really, really nice in this matchup, because he's Terra Ice, is this choice Scarf Scizor. Close combat is going to run a train on my opponent's team once I get that Alamomola weak and get that Gold Dango out of the way. Alright, so good luck, have fun to our good pal Treyant here. He leads off with Harambe, the Munkidori. This is very potentially likely to be Choice Scarf, actually. I think that could actually be kind of likely in this spot. He's actually Air Balloon, which is interesting. And because he's Terra Ice, I can't really stay in this spot. And thankfully, my Spidef Rotom should be able to come in here pretty freely. I could also bring in my Scizor in this spot. I don't want to get too aggressive just yet. And obviously, I don't want to, my Torn is obviously not a Pokemon I really want to put into the dicey spot here, so I'm just going to go into my Rotom here. Rotom is going to be pretty free in this spot, and I'd like to be able to get rid of that Air Balloon given the opportunity. It's really interesting that he has Air Balloon. Probably just prevent Garchomp lead here from being effective, and he's just going to go for the Parting Shot, so that's going to allow him to bring in the Garchomp likely. This is actually something that we had thought about in the builder, is that Parting Shot would be something that's very, very likely in this matchup. Now, Parting Shot into Garchomp, he's just going to bring in this thing. Okay, so the main thing that we thought potentially was Garchomp, but obviously this is not like an opportunity to bring in that Garchomp just yet, so I'm just going to bring in my Okidogi. Okidogi is designed for this specific instance. It can resist both of the stabs that we would expect to see from the Meowscarada. I'm expecting a knockoff here most likely, and he's just going to like to go for the U-turn. Get that Protein going, but we can chew that all day, every day. That does absolutely nothing. And my opponent's getting some decent momentum here. Let me actually open up a Notepad++. Make sure I can actually start taking some notes here. Let's see what my opponent's answer to this is. It could be something, the potential answer here is Gold Dango. Gold Dango can actually come in here and drop and make it rain if it is choice specs. It could be something like Alamomola. Yeah, Alamomola is just going to come in here and be pretty free. I could see something like Flip Turn, but I don't really have any reason to not play around, the Scald here. I have no reason to let this thing get burned in the early game. Just keep the switching up early. I don't have any reason to overpredict. I think we'll allow my opponent to kind of play their game. They're going to Flip Turn a little bit. They're probably going to bring in the Meowscarada again. If they elect to Flip Turn into Meowscarada, then I just go back into this, probably take a knockoff, and then I get to actually click a button, which is nice. So my opponent just wants a U-turn the entire time. Then by all means, I'm okay with that. I have a lot of Pokemon in this Parting Shot, U-turn, Flip Turn, little gambit that I'm pretty content with just dealing with. And yep, flip turn comes out here. Once again, very content with this, and especially with the leftovers, I'm going to be able to bring basically all of that health back. So this game is going about as expected. Not really, you know, much too complicated going on in the plays that I have to make just at this point in time. Nothing like Gholdengo or Garchomp coming out that are really making these decisions any difficult at this point. If my opponent's just going to like to bring up Meowscarada, once again, as I said, I'm pretty much okay with just making this cycle every time. My opponent's not really doing much to get ahead by doing this. You know, they're, you know, making some good momentum, finding out my sets, but I've really taken no progressive damage on my threats. And because of the fact that I do have Drain Punch here, I'm okay with this thing taking a lot of damage over the course of this game. So let's see what my opponent elects to go for here in this spot. I'd really like to get a knockoff and hopefully a Toxic onto that Alomomola. That would be huge in the course of this game. My opponent's just going to like to U-turn. I mean, once again, I really just don't care if my opponent wants to do this every turn. They're probably actually, you know, Gholdengo would actually be an interesting bring into this, in this turn specifically. Because I'm Terra Steel, that's actually probably going to make it difficult for them to think that through. They're going to actually like to go into this Pokemon. Which is kind of curious. I'm not really sure about this. So I don't really want to put the Steel typing on this just yet. I'm kind of just going to go back into Rotom here. I'd like to see what their play is on this. Preserve my Terra typing as much as possible. One of the things that I look at in this matchup that could be problematic, this looks the Parting Shot, wow. I'm not really sure what the plan is here. One of the things I have to be mindful of is that there is the Aura Sphere, or not the Aura Sphere, there can be Brick Break, there can be fighting moves, low kick out of this Meowscarada. My opponent decides to go into average, so they've broken up they've kind of broken this up a little bit here and made a different play, which is good to see. We've got a little bit of a different decision on our hands here. So this Gholdengo is actually not going to really do much at all. Modest Choice Spec is going to do max 58%, so I'm pretty much, you know, okay to just stay in here and Volt Switch, get a little bit of chip. That chip is going to be really crucial in this spot here if they elect to go for Shadow Ball. It's still going to be, you know, a Pokemon I have to gain a lot of health back on at some point, hopefully against something like Fortress, where we'll really have to gain that health back, but I'm just going to be able to Volt Switch. I'm perfectly okay with that, and I'd like to see if this is Choice Specs. I do quickly find out that this is not Choice Specs though, and this looks to just be a substitute set. Hopefully I'm going to be able to pick up the break on this sub here. And I'm not going to be able to actually pick up the sub break, which is a little bit unfortunate. Luckily for me, I can go into something like Choice Scarf. Okay, what is this set then? Okay, so this is probably, it's probably 252 with a little bit of Spadaf on that thing, which means that I can probably just bring in Scizor and Choice Scarf U-turn off of this. Choice Scarf U-turn is actually going to break the substitute here. I don't want to take any damage if I don't have to, but once again, since we move second, I can just bring in the Scizor here, U-turn, break the sub, and go right back into right back into my Rotom Wash. So that's actually really good to know that this is what set this is. Probably sub nasty plot of some variety. A little bit of a Scarf U-turn here is going to be very nice to get that substitute broken, get right back into Rotom, and, you know, prevent that substitute from getting back up. That substitute didn't break? Wow. That must be actually full Spadaf then, if it didn't break. Okay, well, that's a little bit annoying then that it didn't break. That's good to know though, that it is full, because that's the only way that this doesn't break. Yeah, that's the only way basically that this doesn't break, is if this is full bulky the entire way through. And that means this thing is doing nothing then to my Rotom Wash. So I'm just going to come back into this. This thing, you know, it can set up a nasty plot. That's perfectly fine. And he's just going to like to go for his Shadow Ball. So this should do at most 26%. Yeah, that's going to do basically nothing. Yeah, if I look at how much damage that's doing here. 81, is that like... No, that's a little bit less than max roll maybe. Okay, so that's good to know here. It's just going to be sub 3 attacks. We've kind of figured out the set that's going on here. Oh, this is careful. Oh, I've completely fucking bundled that one a little bit. Whoopsies. We are calm. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. So that was about probably a mid-roll there. So now my opponent is not going to be able to substitute on me again, which is very, very good. And the fact that they are this Spadef set is actually very good for me, because that gives me a lot of options to come into after this. So I can just take another Shadow Ball here, perfectly fine. No siree, no problem for me. I'm going to take a lot of damage on this thing, unfortunately, but I am going to be able to break the substitute. And I think what I want to do now is, if I look at my Scizor, the problem is Scizor doesn't come in, it knocks this thing off, which is very, very nice. But once there is, oh wait, no, I have to put an item back on this thing, duh. This thing is going to do a lot, and while I will take a decent amount of damage on my Scizor to do this, I kind of actually just want to go into Torn maybe. Torn's going to take a lot from Make It Rain. Would like to really get a knockoff on this thing. Would be nice. The knockoff's going to do... The combo of knockoff from Scizor is actually going to be just a little bit better in this spot. So I'm just going to go into Choice Scarf Scizor here. Pick up a knockoff on either this thing or something else. It's going to have to take a lot of chip to do this. But I'd really like to threaten that into the Alomomola, because that'll give me the opportunity to get a little bit of potential health back. And if, you know, he allows me to get the knockoff on this, and I'm perfectly okay. Yeah, it's going to do a ton of damage. Oh my god. The thing just almost drops immediately. And he tries to go for the substitute and is not going to be able to get the sub off. That is a huge, huge turn for me right there. A little bit of a turning point, moment of the battle, getting this Gholdengo out of the way. And this really, really opens up Choice Scarf Scizor the rest of this game. I think I don't know if he necessarily predicted Choice Scarf Scizor in this way, which is kind of interesting. The fact that I've calced this damage too allows me to really be aggressive with my Choice Scarf Scizor as well. So he's probably going to have to pick something to come in here. Probably the Alomomola is going to have to take this knockoff now, unless he wants to give me this. And if he does give me this, then Choice Scarf Scizor with close combat is going to have a great, great time in this battle the rest of the way through. Meowscarada, you know, Garchomp and munkidori, especially if he Terras on the munkidori, are going to have a really, really tough time. And he's actually going to elect to switch out, which is probably for the best here. And as he goes into the Alomomola, it makes perfect sense, definitely, to go into that thing. I'm going to get a good knockoff there. Heavy duty boots out of the way. And I think I'm just going to make a, you know, I have to make a switch here. I don't really want to go into this Rotom just yet. Rotom is actually now a pretty good check to that. Well, it's not really a good check to that because they still have to potentially lose it. I'm not really going to gain much HP going into it. I can go into the Torn, actually. Torn actually puts a lot of interesting pressure on his team. It probably invites the munkidori, which just invites this in. So I kind of want to go... That's an interesting spot. I do have a little bit of a difficulty dealing with the munkidori. But I'm just gonna bring in the Rotom Wash. Munkidori is a little bit of a problem child now, actually, at this point, because of the fact that I've let my Rotom Wash take so much damage. And he is going to like to go for the Wish. So I think what I have to do in this spot, because my opponent has elected to Wish, is I have to Thunderbolt here. I don't think I am at the liberty of Volt Switching here on the Gholdengo. So I think Volt Switch is probably not going to do the... Volt Switch might, actually. There's like a decent chance that Volt Switch actually does. But I really just want to Thunderbolt here. I also want to stay in and get a little bit of extra HP. So I'm just going to click Thunderbolt here. Protect against the switch into Gholdengo. He's just going to stay in with this thing, actually. And wow, he's going to take a lot of damage. And he's actually going to get paralyzed here. That is massive. Everything is just coming up well for me at this point. And he elects to Flip Turn here. That is actually going to bring in the Gholdengo, which is really, really good for my opponent here. It's going to actually bring that up pretty close to full health. Because of the Flip Turn. I didn't really have a way to block that, unfortunately. So Gholdengo is going to be back up basically to full HP here. But we have essentially neutralized the idea of this set. We've, you know, prevented... Oh my god, the fact that that's taken so much damage is so annoying here. The thing is that's nice is Hydro Pump can actually break this thing's substitute. So I'm kind of like content to just go for a Hydro Pump here to try to break the substitute. What other options do I have? Munkidori is something that can come in. Obviously, my Spadef Garchomp. Man, the fact that they got this Wish off is a little bit annoying. Definitely not as happy as I would have, you know, as I would like to be in this spot. Maybe I could have Volt Switched, honestly. Volt Switch would have been nice. I think I'm just going to Hydro Pump here, just to protect against the substitute. Yeah, my opponent does like to substitute here. So there are, you know, obviously some ranges where this doesn't pick up the kill on the substitute. You know, 24.8 looks to be the max roll. But we should be able to pick up the substitute kill. Perfect. And the fact that this thing doesn't have leftovers now means this is not gaining almost any residual damage on this. And I'm doing about 30% if he lets me attack. Which does, you know, I think this would be the turn he attacks if he does. And then he substitutes the turn after. I'm just going to Hydro Pump again. As he's actually going to withdraw here. Interesting. Let's see what he goes into. Probably the Meowscarada. He does. There's actually some decent chip here. Not that I think it's going to matter too much throughout the rest of the game, and it definitely won't matter at all because he misses. Or I miss. Unbelievable. Okay, so this is... We picked up some good leftovers damage here, actually. That's been very, very useful in this spot, and I'm just going to continue to go to this Pokemon. I mean, my game plan is not really going to change much at all. I think, you know, venturing from just going into my okidogi here every time, he's just going to like to U-turn every time, which is perfectly fine by me. And we get to, you know, continue to play this cycle. This is going to be a long game, guys. Sit in for this one. It's going to be a lot of switching. The one thing that is also actually kind of annoying about getting the para on the Alomomola is we can't actually now toxic it with the we can't actually toxic it now, which is pretty unfortunate. So he's going to be able to pressure me. I'm going to actually see how much damage this does. This thing, I do a lot of damage. Like, let's not, you know, this is certainly, you know, asking for a lot for this to kill. But yeah, this is certainly not killing a defensive Alomomola. Yeah, so this is certainly not killing from this spot, and I have no reason at all to risk a Scald here in this spot. So I'm just going to go straight back into my Rotom Wash. No reason to get, you know, to get fancy with this. It's going to gain a lot of health back, of course, which is, you know, pretty unfortunate. If I had Substitute, that would have been an interesting thing to see. Would really like to see a full parry here, actually. Wow, that's actually pretty convenient for me. Well, I'm not going to complain about that one. That is a great full pair for me. A little bit of extra leftovers, you know, recovery back, and I'm going to be able to pressure this thing with a Thunderbolt. Question is, do I Will-O-Wisp here? Do I predict something like the Garchomp to come in? Garchomp, if it comes in, is it even that bad if it does? What, you know, what is Garchomp doing? It could be Lumberry and then Swords Dance on me. That is a possibility. I could just Will-O-Wisp right away to protect against that. You could just go into Goldango, which is actually pretty likely in this spot. Regardless, I'm just going to Volt Switch. He hasn't chosen to go into Garchomp yet. So I think Goldango seems to still be the likely play my opponent wants to make. And he wants to go to this, actually. Wow, okay, that's actually really, really good for me. This opens up a good opportunity to click a move with my Okidogi and actually pick up a decent amount of damage. Or I can go into something like the Scizor, Choice Scarf Scizor. We don't know what this Pokemon set is just yet. So we don't know if it's worth going into the Scarf Scizor just yet. This thing could very well be Scarf itself. So I don't want to lose my Scarf just yet. I can go into my Okidogi actually and pick up a quick little Drain Punch here onto that Alomomola, which would be very, very nice. Get a lot of HP back. Is there anything reason to go for something else besides this? I can go for a double close combat, but the fact that the Regenerator is going to bring up most of that damage now, there's really no point to do that. Going to take a little bit of a U-turn damage here. That's perfectly fine, but we're going to heal so much of this damage back up off of this Alomomola. He goes into Fortnite, actually. Okay, not what I expected. And the Fortress. Okay, perfect. It looks like my opponent's going to take this as an opportunity to start getting some hazards up. I'm still going to be able to get a good amount of HP back off of this. Yummy. That is not a lot. That is a swift 34. Alright, so it looks like opponent's going to get one layer of spikes up here. Nothing on my team is affected by spikes except my Choice Scarf Scizor, so that means we're going to have to be a little bit more mindful of that in the mid game, but I'm just going to come right here into my Torn to prevent any more of these hazards from getting up. As I said, I am Taunt Protect on my Torn this week to manage this Pokemon. My opponent's just going to go for the Volt Switch. Good play on their part. So it looks like they're Volt Switch instead of Explosions, so that makes a little bit more sense for this type of mid-game set. Let's see what my opponent goes into. Looks like they're just going to plan to use it as kind of a defensive pivot in this spot. Could have been Terra Fire. Terra Fire actually would have been pretty useful in this match. They were in with munkidori last time. If I go for the Protect, I can kind of scout against that just a little bit into Harape. That's such a funny name. Okay, so the question here, it does have Air Balloon. They parting shotted last time. We're kind of just in this like U-turn bot moment game, and you know, the more damage that I get set up, like if I look at my opponent's team, I really just want to get that Aloe Momola out of the way, because then my Garchomp can kind of sweep and win this game pretty effectively for me. So I'm really in kind of a situation where I don't really want to take almost any risk in this game, and risking off this Torn is pretty low benefit for me at this point, honestly. I think I'm just going to Protect though. I don't think my opponent's going to nasty plot. My opponent could, but if they nasty plot, then I can go back into this, force the Terra, and then go into Choice Scarf. I'm just going to go back. I'm just going to go into this. This is what I've done every time. I'm kind of expecting a parting shot, but I think I'm okay with my opponent if they elected to go for the parting shot. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be parting shot nasty plot. Wow, going for the future sight there is actually a pretty ballsy play. I kind of, you know, respect that move there. I could have easily gone for the knockoff there, but I guess they have no reason to predict that I would knock off. So this thing, yeah, hits 2 turns after being used. I just want to make sure that I have like the full situation under control. I'm just going to Volt Switch off this thing, see if my opponent wants to reveal another move. They're just going to go for the parting shot. That's fine. Let's see if my opponent wants to go into Garchomp here. They haven't shown a willingness to go into Garchomp just yet. They might be trying to set up for me to bring in my okidogi, which is actually really good that I have Terra Steel now. Gardenia would be the Pokemon I really want to see here. I'd be curious to see if that's the Pokemon that I want to bring in this spot. They're really preserving this ice, and I think part of it is because they realize now that I have Choice Scarf Scizor, and they want to protect the typing on that Pokemon. Yeah, they're looking to set up a future sight on my okidogi here, which is perfectly fine. I'm okay with that, you know, by all means, if that's the game plan my opponent wants to do. And because I have the Terra Steel, I'm certainly going to be okay with taking that damage. And if my opponent wants to stay in a low kick on a predicted Terra Steel, then I am once again certainly fine with that. Obviously, I want to protect once again still against Choice Scarf knockoff from this Meowscarada. So I want to make sure that I'm not going for anything crazy like going into Scizor, allowing that to get knocked off. But I'm going to go for the Terra Steel, get a little bit of a Drain Punch going off here. I could go for the knockoff as well, but I'm just going to Drain Punch. See if I can bait my opponent into staying in here. And this Terra Steel, great, you know, not exactly what I was bringing it for in this spot, but the fact that I have the Steel typing to take advantage of this future sight is actually going to be pretty convenient here, because I know this low kick shouldn't be killing from this range, and I'm going to be able to pick up, you know, a lot of good damage, here, and basically trade off this future sight. We are taking a lot of damage though. This is going to be a long game. This is going to be friggin' annoying to edit in the end, I can tell you that much. And that's one of the interesting things about this one. Sharknado. Oh my god, my opponent just goes into this. Okay, that's actually going to pick up a lot of damage. Okay, this is maybe bulky, actually. My opponent is Rough Skin, so we're going to be able to get a lot of information off on this Pokemon. Oh my god, that future set actually still did a shit ton of damage. Really not liking how much damage I'm taking here. Apologies for the phone. I am on call for work, so I do have to have my phone on still in this spot. That Drain Punch, yeah, that looks to be potentially, yeah, a little bit more than max HP. And that Earthquake is going to, you know, be threatening here. But I'm going to go right into my Screamtail here. This is going to protect against Scale Shot, and if my opponent elects to just go straight for the Sword Stance, and that's great as well. My opponent makes an aggressive double here into the Gardenia. Okay, that's actually really good news here. The double into Screamtail. Wow, if I just attack my opponent again, I'm obviously not really in a position where I want to make that move, but it looks like my opponent is really potentially allowing me to make some aggressive plays here. So, Meowscarada here, obviously going to outspeed this, certainly. Flower Trick is probably going to do a lot of damage. This Ice Beam, I kind of can take a knockoff here at this point if I want. I would like to get my Stealth Rocks up at this point to start to put a little bit of damage on my opponent's team. If my opponent just elects to, U-turn here, how much damage is that doing? U-turn's really not doing anything, and I can still, live a decent amount of the hits that I'd like to from this Pokemon. My opponent does elect to attack. I think I'm just going to get my Stealth Rocks up here. This is a good opportunity to get my rocks up, and my opponent does just elect to U-turn in this spot. The U-turn's going to do a fuck ton. Is that Choice Banded? Wow, that is Choice. Oh, this thing has Overgrow on it. What is going on? What is this? And I get up my Stealth Rocks, which is perfect. Really, really good to get my Stealth Rocks up here. In this battle, yeah, this looks to be... Hold on, how much did that do? This did about 7, 5, 175? No, not 175. 160-ish? Is this Adamant Choice Band? No, this could just be Adamant, like, Choice Scarf or something. I'm confused. These calcs are just not calcing for me at the moment. My opponent is probably just going to go for a substitute here. I'm just going to elect to go right into my Rotom Wash. Rotom Wash has been my play every time. Don't have a reason to deviate from this plan at this point. Just going into Rotom Wash and clicking Hydro Pumps every time is just going to be the safest option I have here. Especially considering the fact that this thing is so low. It only has one more option to substitute after this. Really want to avoid a Spit F drop here. Oh, it's because I have... Oh, it's because I don't have enough HP on this. Okay, this makes a lot more sense. U-turn, Adamant. Okay, it looks to potentially be Adamant Choice Band, actually, which means this is actually really, really good news for my Scizor in the back here. In that spot that I should actually be able to list some hits. I like how our sprites are the exact same. That's kind of funny. Really need to not miss this Hydro Pump here. That's going to be really, really critical in this battle. Really need no Spit F drop and really need to hit this Hydro Pump. Alright, we're not going to hit the Hydro Pump. That's unfortunate. But the fact that he has no leftovers means that this is still not an untenable position at this point. We're still going to be able to break this substitute. Really needed to break that sub there to force another substitute here. The fact that he's going to get the second Shadow Ball off is really, really annoying. And it's going to force me to go into my Garchomp actually here on the next turn. Yeah, really need this one to hit though. It is going to hit. That's perfect. And that substitute is going to fade pretty easily here. Now the question is it's time to get interesting. It's time to think our way through this one a little bit. So we know what type of Goldango this is. We basically know its entire set. So Shadow Ball is actually not killing. I really don't want to take all the rest of this damage though. Like it could have some investment. I don't think it's max. I think I actually do want to just stand and Hydro Pump this thing again. I think he's just going to substitute. Okay, he's just going to Shadow Ball. I don't think this is going to kill me because of the bulk profile on this thing. Yep, we do get that prediction, on the set correct, and we are going to pick up a Hydro Pump here. Very, very nice, and that's now going to be in pretty brutal range for my opponent here. Of the Choice Scarf Scizor now can even pick this thing up with Bullet Punch. I am going to have to switch into this Shadow Ball though, and I think I'm just going to elect to do it with my Tornadus. Here is probably the most effective way to live this, and my opponent's going to like to switch out, so that's perfect. Would really like to see what my opponent does here. Gardenia. Wow, this actually ends up being really, really good for me, as I get to see a little bit more of the set. Alright, so it is weak to rock, so that does lead me to believe down the Choice Band path of thinking here. So I can go for the Protect here to really find out here. Or I can kind of stay in. I kind of like the idea of staying in here. Knockoff is pretty free against my opponent's team. He could go into something like Alomomola here. Well, Alomomola is not really a good idea for the most part. I'm actually just going to knock off here. See if my opponent, gives me any more information about this Pokemon set. And it is actually going to be, my opponent is actually just going to attack this. So it's going to give me, a little bit more information. That means it's probably creeping this thing. Just a little bit. My opponent probably wants to go into Alomomola here. And I can actually get a taunt off, and my opponent wants to go into Alomomola to try to get a wish back into that Goldango, which would be actually really, really massive for me. And goes into the buffet. Yeah, in comes the Alomomola. It is going to take some damage from the Stealth Rocks, and it is just going to eat a knockoff, which is going to do absolutely nothing. But this taunt is going to prevent my opponent from getting a wish going and try to get that Goldango back in here. So that is good for me. My opponent is, they're going to wish after the taunt. That is perfect. And they're probably going to try to get a slow flip turn off here. So I can even go for... I can't really go for the protect. That would be an unproductive turn here, to say the least. I can go for... I just go for a Hurricane. Hurricane would be probably fine here if my opponent tries to like hard out switch. I am going to miss again. Awesome. I'm just missing like actually every single attack. My opponent's going to be paralyzed. Okay. So unproductive turn. Nothing really happening there. That's perfectly fine. I'm just going to Hurricane again. If I miss another attack, then I'm going to be a little bit heated. I'm definitely above the expected value on attacks missed this game. That's certain. We get nice to get a little confusion here, actually. My opponent is going to get the flip turn off, so I am going to actually have to switch out this turn to make sure I preserve as much health on this thing as possible. Man, if I hit that Hurricane, actually, that Alomomola was in threat. I would not be able to get a free flip turn off and was going to have to switch into a Hurricane. So really unfortunate that I missed that, actually, in this spot. And Gardenia comes back out here. Going to continue to take that Stealth Rock damage. So the fact that this is faster, question is, I really want to preserve my Okidogi, but it's looking like it's probably the end of the line for Okidogi at this point. My opponent can U-turn, maybe go into something, and I can probably just sack it off here at this point. This thing is well and fully in range of the Scizor here from Bullet Punch, so I'm just going to go right back into Okidogi, let my opponent U-turn on me, and see what they want to do. If they want to go into the munkidori, actually, I'd actually be pretty okay with that that particular sequence to sack this thing off. My opponent is going to elect to go for the knockoff here. So that's going to actually drop my Okidogi. Unfortunate that we lose this thing. You know, salute to Okidogi. Okidogi did its job in this spot, and I'd like to see what... I'd like to see some calcs here. So the Bullet Punch is certainly picking up the knockout here. Yeah, the Bullet Punch is certainly picking up the knockout, so I'm definitely just going to go into this Pokemon, force that Bullet Punch. I'm expecting a switch into the... what is it? I'm expecting a switch here, actually, into the Fortress. I don't expect my opponent to U-turn and give me this immediately. That would be pretty bad. I think it would be pretty bad on their part to make a move like that, and I think we've kind of deduced their set pretty effectively. So I'm just going to actually get really aggressive and U-turn here. Yep, my opponent is going to switch out. So that is perfect. Trying to get that prediction on the Bullet Punch, and I am going to be able to get in on this. I'm going to be able to get in on this Fortress with my Torn-t, which is actually going to be really, really nice. The problem is now I can't really switch into the Meowscarada at this point, so I have to be really mindful about how I want to play around that. If I look at how much time left, alright, I'm a little bit behind on time, which I have to be mindful of. My opponent knows I have Taunt now, so I'm kind of expecting them to play around the Taunt in this spot. Once again, my team doesn't really care about hazards anyway for the most part because of the boots. So I'm just going to elect a Hurricane, protect against any common switch-ins my opponent might want to make here. Heat Wave is kind of odd, you know, would be the obvious move to go for in this spot. I've revealed 3 attacks at this point. So the 4th one could easily be Heat Wave in this spot. So something like Alomomola would be a pretty obvious switch-in. I do have the Protect in case my opponent does want to boom, but the fact that they're Volt Switch and didn't play this as a lead, it makes me think it's very highly unlikely at this point that they have the Explosion in this spot. If they click it in this spot, then, you know, fair play to them. They made a really good play if they live this Hurricane, but I'm really just expecting a switch to go out here in this spot, and yet my opponent is going to elect a switch. Let's see what they go into. Munkidori, maybe? They go into Average. Okay. That is really, really good for me. Really going to be nice to pick this Pokemon off here at this spot. Obviously, if I missed a Hurricane, that would be kind of a meme, but we are going to pick off the Goldango. So this was actually a really, really annoying Pokemon in this matchup, and that is a threat gone and out of the way. Really, really nice to see that one get picked up here, and my opponent's team is going to have to start facing the music when it comes to these hazards. These hazards are not going to be nice long term. That's going to be a really bad one to pick up there. If that has to go into the ice form at any point, then that's going to get really, really pressured by my Scizor here. Once again, my Garchomp is a Pokemon that can still potentially do a lot of damage in this game with ST Scale Shot. I still have to break through that Alomomola. That Alomomola is a problem and a half. I can go into the Rotom Wash here to sack this Pokemon off. Ooh, we're getting to some really, really tough decisions here. I do expect the Terra Ice actually to come out. I think at this point would make the most sense for it to come out. So I'm just going to go into Rotom Wash here. I really would like to protect this thing, if at all possible, to check that Alomomola, but I think I kind of have to make this play at this point. Future Sight, really? My opponent's getting really, really aggressive with these Future Sight plays. Interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I expect a Parting Shot to come in here at this point, though. That would make a lot of sense for that. I'm expecting... I do still have the Scream Tail, which is, you know, going to be potentially nice for this. The Garchomp is potentially free in this spot. I'm just going to Volt Switch here. My opponent is probably going to elect a Parting Shot. Would be the play that they've always made, and they go for the Sludge Wave here. So we do get to finally see a new move, actually, in this spot. See a little bit of a Sludge Wave action. But this munkidori now opens up my Scizor here pretty effectively here. Scizor is going to be able to come in and actually deal a lot of damage with a knockoff here. Does this thing, the fact that it's Terra Ice now, have any way to do a lot of damage to it? I could also just elect to U-turn on this thing and go into Scream Tail. I think I'm just going to U-turn, you know, go into Choice Scarf Scizor here and just try to U-turn into Scream Tail. I don't think my opponent's going to elect to, you know, I could, you know, very well be Bite Bite in this spot. I don't think my opponent's going to elect to Sludge Wave on this turn. That would be very, very aggressive if my opponent chooses to Sludge Wave in this spot. I would be very, very impressed if they made that play. But this Choice Scarf is going to be pretty big in this spot here. And my opponent's just going to withdraw the Harambe. And they're probably going to go into something like Alomomola. They actually just go into the buffet. Yeah, the Alomomola. This is not going to like taking this hit, though. This is now in like a range of like a decent amount of things. Hold up. This is actually going to get really, really interesting. Let me go to Alomomola and my Garchomp at this spot. So this is potentially in range of the Garchomp Scale Shot, which is actually pretty interesting. That does open up a lot here, potentially in this spot. I could also go for the Earthquake in this spot. Earthquake does make it difficult to switch in. I'm actually just going to bring this thing in. My opponent can't really switch into this Earthquake actually effectively at all. And the fact that it takes so much damage, now I'm going to have to take this Future Sight, but I am Spadef to take that. Yeah, if I look at how much damage this Pokemon has taken, he can't really go into Garchomp because I can easily Dragon Claw. He can't really go into Munkidori. The Scale Shot would be obviously, you know, very, very powerful here, but he could go into something like the Fortress as well. So I'm just going to elect to Earthquake, see if I can pick this Pokemon off, just go for an attack. Scale Shot would be nice, but if he switches out here, I don't think I can break this thing. I can't get a Sword Stance up at any point in the next few turns. But this thing is now also, because it's taken so much damage continuously, and it goes down. That is huge. Really, really like to see this Pokemon down. This Pokemon has been a massive problem, and now my Choice Scarf Scizor is looking mighty fine here the rest of this game to potentially pick up a big win here. I got to make sure I don't switch in on a knockoff on this Meowscarada, though. That's going to be critical in this game, that I don't make a mistake like that. My opponent is going to like to bring out Harambe, so this looks like we're going to see a Terra Ice. This is going to be where the Terra Ice moment, I think, has to come out. It makes the most sense here. My opponent probably is doing this actually to predict a Choice Scarf. That actually would make a lot of sense to do as well. My opponent is predicting me to run Choice Scarf this week. I could Scale Shot if my opponent does elect to Future Sight. Do I actually need this Pokemon now? Is a question. That's an interesting question at this spot. What is the Garchomp Calyx on Scizor? Yeah, like Garchomp is still like not doing, you know, it's still taking a lot from Scizor, but I do think that Ice Attack is, I do think the Ice Attack is coming out here. Or I do think he's just going to try to get cute here and get a Future Sight going. I'm just going to Scale Shot here. See if my opponent just goes for Parting Shot. Wow, that is a massive, big call on my part here to go for the Scale Shot. And now my opponent is left with a really, really tough decision here. They're probably going to play like this as Earthquake, would be my guess. And my opponent is going to send out the Fortnite. And hopefully the Scale Shot does connect so I can get that little bit extra chip. Obviously that's not going to do much of anything. But I do get the speed boost, which is what really, really matters in this spot. He could boom on me here, that's, you know, a possibility. But the fact that I've scale shotted now does give me just that little bit extra speed that I need to put pressure on my opponent's garchomp. I could SD here. I could just go for the Fire Fang. Fire Fang is very, very powerful here in this spot. If my opponent elects to give me this through Boom, then I'm also kind of happy with that as well. Then that gives me frees up my Tor and the ability to do something in this matchup. I could elect a Sword Stance. That puts me to +1. Where does +1 lead me on my ability to kill this thing? It does mean I can kill this the next time it comes out, and that would make it pretty easy to pick up some other kills, but he can just stay in the other form. I'm just going to Fire Fang here. Just pick up as much damage as possible. Love to get a burn here. That's not going to help. My opponent's just going to Dry Ball. Okay. And my opponent's going to get up a crit. I think that crit was pretty much irrelevant anyway. Oh, hold on. No, that crit was very relevant, actually, potentially in this spot, depending on what type of set my opponent is. That is a little bit annoying, but we do get to come here into the torn-t. Not sure how I feel about that. Maybe I'm just, you know, playing this one a little bit incorrectly here. I can just bring this thing in, though, and nothing is going to want to take this Hurricane. It has to be Terra Blast's last move on this munkidori. I'm not really sure what else would be on the set that would make a lot of sense in this spot. But this Hurricane is the freest click of my life, and I'm going to be able to pick up this Fortress. So another problem out of the way. And the Garchomp is a potential to come in here. I could potentially be Icy Wind. I haven't clicked that yet. You know, it's very much a possibility. But if my opponent does go into Garchomp, I can go... I kind of want to actually protect my Screamtail in that spot. Sharknado, yeah, it comes out here. Let's see what my opponent's set is. That's actually taken a lot of damage so far. So it could be Choice Scarf here. I don't think we've really seen any move from this just yet. So it could be something like Sword Stance. I could knock off. That's like a possibility of something that could be useful in this. Where did my other thing go? Oh my god, I completely biffed my thing. I kind of just want to go for the Hurricane, because then that continues to open up my Scizor endgame. I think I'm just going to Hurricane, continue to open up that Scizor endgame. Yeah, that's going to do a lot of damage. My opponent's probably going to try to set up here in this spot. And I get a Confusion. Wow. That Confusion is massive in this spot. Let's see if I can get a full Confusion. My opponent might be trying to Scale Shot me here, but this is now in range of the Bullet Punch. Yeah, my opponent is Scale Shotting me here. That makes a lot of sense. But once again, this is now in range of Bullet Punch, which is all I really needed from this thing, was to get this Pokemon in range of Bullet Punch. And now Bullet Punch is actually going to be able to do a pretty good job of cleaning this battle out the rest of the way. I could go for the knockoff. What's the knockoff calc? About 20%. Yeah, I'm just going to click knockoff here. Just so I don't, you know, I don't have the chance of missing in this spot. Would be nice. My opponent's going to snap out of Confusion, and they're going to go for the Stealth Rock here. Wow. Interesting play. Probably a little bit of a last bit of a desperation moment to get those Stealth Rocks up, but we're going to get this knockoff, get this Pokemon out of here, and I am pretty confident at this point that we should be able to pick up this win. Scarf Scizor should be able to clean the rest of this game with a Bullet Punch. That was a long game. A lot of complicated turns in that one. My opponent, you know, really brought the U-turn momentum game out in full effect, but torn-t coming through and doing what torn-t does best, just winning games of Pokemon, just taking infinite damage and just doing its thing. I'm going to click the Hurricane. I got no reason to stay in here. My opponent's just going to elect to go for the knockoff. I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm just going to let this thing go down, and I'm going to be able to bring in my Choice Scarf. I'm just going to be able to bring in my Choice Scarf Scizor, go for the U-turn here, and then be able to bring this thing back in again. Yeah, the Bullet Punch is just going to do enough damage here. I'm just going to go for the Bullet Punch. Just keep this thing safe. You know, just be safe here. No reason to get overcomplicated with this battle. Just pick that Pokemon off. And now my opponent is going to bring in this munkidori. This doesn't have anything crazy that can hit me with at this point, I don't think. You know, looking at my opponent's set, I don't think anything is going to really matter at this point. Even if it does, I do have the Ice Beam that I can come in with after. So we're just going to continue to Bullet Punch this thing. Choice Scarf Scizor proving to be a massive threat in this team, and this is what the team was designed to do. Just, you know, fight these momentum games. The quality of my Pokemon will win out in the end, and the combination of torn-t and Scizor doing just that in this game. Good game to Treant. Good to get back on the board here with this victory. He's going to throw the Terra up. You got to respect it. Good little Terra munkidori going, of course, to end this battle off. But good game to Treant. If you guys enjoyed this battle, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you have not already. As I said, trying to get to 400 subscribers this year, and I would really appreciate it if you help me along that journey. Next up is going to be GBU week number 1, so make sure to take a look at that video at the end of the week. Next up, we got Ghost Tricker Leo. If we beat him, we have a pretty good chance of making it out of our brackets in Scramble. But that is all for me today. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, have a wonderful day.